Good morning, everyone. As Beth said, I'm Cameron Diehl, the Executive Director of the League of Cities and Towns, and it's now been 11 months since I became the Executive Director, and I'm proud to declare before you today that the state of the League is strong. I want to personally applaud the leadership of the League Board of Directors over the last year and really over the last couple of years. On behalf of our entire staff, I want to say thank you, and I want to appreciate your confidence in us, your involvement in the organization, and your overall support of local government. We, as a staff, strive daily to advocate for you and ensure that you have the authority, information, and tools that you need to govern and that you need to lead. We have had quite a year. For example, people from 184 cities and towns attended League conferences and events over the last 12 months. Our Friday Facts email list goes to more than 3,000 city officials, policymakers, and other stakeholders, and we send that weekly during the off-season and daily during the legislative session. We had a record number of applicants for the League Board of Directors this year. We had 33, and they were rock stars. It was hard for the nominations committee to have to narrow it down because of the number of rock stars that applied to lead this organization. We've had great interest in caucuses, the Land Use Academy of Utah, Women in Local Government, the Legislative Policy Committee, and the other programs that we have for you. Ultimately, the strength of the League is you, the membership, and for that we thank you. As I mentioned, I was hired 11 months ago. So when I stood before you at the annual conference last year, I'd been announced as the director, but I had not yet officially started. I can tell you it has been exhilarating, it's been humbling, it's been exhausting, it's been satisfying. Because I can tell you that I certainly feel older. I certainly feel older even if I now look a little bit younger. And Mark and Mayor Caldwell, when that picture was taken of my daughter and I, Weaver State had the lead.
Why are you smiling?
Yeah, it was a pretty brutal first quarter. I thought my daughter was bad luck. But thankfully we scored a touchdown, and then she decided she was done. You could tell you could see the look of concern on her face about the scoreboard at that point. When I stood before you, though, last September, we made commitments to you as staff of what we were going to try to accomplish in our first 100 days and over the first year. And I'm proud to acknowledge and declare that we have made significant progress in all 6 areas that we put before you last year. We promised we would address the structure of the League, that we would improve our sponsor and partner outreach and really have a focus on collaboration, that we would look to improve our training programs, that we would improve our legislative advocacy and outreach, that we would reinvest in research, and that we would prepare a strategic communications plan for the board and staff so that we can advocate for you. And as I mentioned, we feel like we've made significant progress in all 6 categories. I'm going to take a quick moment and just touch on those briefly. First, structurally, we created a Constitution Review Committee, and back in the spring you voted to expand the Board of Directors because of the results and the findings of that Constitution Review Committee. And the Board of Directors held their first retreat in decades to give us marching orders as staff. We created an open process for you to serve on behalf of the League on state boards and commissions. We started the caucuses so that you can engage with each other as communities of commonality. Buttressing that structure is a competent and devoted staff. Our internal operations have improved. We're on time noticing meetings and submitting other documents to the state as required by law. We came in under budget this year, utilizing our limited resources more efficiently than before while still providing value to you. We're transparent with our finances regularly reviewed and scrutinized by our board and treasurer. We have regularized our HR practices, and we have worked hard to create an enjoyable and supportive work environment for our employees. On the sponsor side, we created a sponsorship program for our 21 sponsors. We increased the number of sponsorships of companies that are supporting the League, and we increased our overall sponsor revenue by 17% this year. We are working hard to grow partnerships with a variety of organizations, ranging from Wasatch Front Regional Council, to the Economic Development Corporation of Utah, to Water Now, Golden Spike, and others. On the training, I mentioned that 184 cities and towns attended programming in the last 11 months. We overhauled our elected officials' essentials and brought in some of those partners that I just referenced. We have our Land Use Academy of Utah, which has videos and other resources for you so that you can better understand land use and be able to implement that in your communities. We hosted the first ever Rural Mayor Summit in collaboration with our counterparts from the Idaho and Wyoming Associations of Cities. Thanks to Utah State University for hosting not just the Rural Mayor Summit, but for facilitating our elected officials' essentials and our other trainings. Then, as you know, we overlapped with UAC and mid-year, and we've re-engaged with the National League of Cities. And I, as a director, have met with directors from more than 40 states, either by phone or in person, to learn what's happening there, how we can learn from them, and what's happening in their state houses, so that we can learn from each other. Legislatively, we tracked 301 bills this past legislative session. Rachel, well, her first session, 301 bills, and thank you for your tremendous work overseeing that effort. We had success on 89% of our priority bills, and we stood on principles of local control. We published a legislative preview. We've created the prism of principles about local control that we could stand on as an organization. We did our legislative wrap-up after the session. You as a League Army, you're welcome, Mark. You as a League Army were successful in pushing back against state overreach. And I'll remind you of one particular bill that was really symbolic of what we faced last year and what we're going to face again in the year and maybe years to come, and that was House Bill 175. That was an attempt by the legislature to create an oversight committee of 9 legislators that would have the jurisdiction to evaluate the efficiency or effectiveness of any local government ordinance in the state. Doesn't matter if you were a school board, city council, county commission, 9 legislators would have had the authority to say, you know what, Richfield, we think that was inefficient or ineffective. Or, you know what, Ivans, sorry, Mayor Hart, we don't trust you guys. Doesn't matter that we're not actually from Washington County because we're 9 members from around the state, but we're gonna step in and say it's inefficient or it's ineffective. We fought off that bill because of your help. That type of bill, unfortunately, is happening in states around the country. On the research side, I mentioned the local government prism. This was the first time we ever used a prism like this, and legislators respected it because it was no longer just about politics, it was about the policy. And we actually had a member of House leadership say to us, you guys opposed too many bills this year. And my response back to that member of House leadership was, stop running bad bills. And I meant it, and I've had several conversations with him since. It is essential, though, that legislators hear that message from all of us, not just from Rachel, not just from Roger, not just from me, not just from the board, but from all of us. On the research side, we've reinvested in research, and we've been doing it through partnerships. You're going to hear later today from Y2 Analytics, which is the premier polling firm in the state. We've entered into a relationship with Y2 along with Wasatch Front Regional Council and the Salt Lake Chamber to talk about what do residents think about growth. And you're going to be fascinated by the findings. The poll closed Monday, and on Tuesday they presented the high-level findings to our board of directors. And we're going to be working through those results in the weeks to come. We've partnered with the Utah Foundation for a survey that will come out next week to your cities to better understand what's happening on the ground about land use, so that we have the information we need to be better advocates for you. We released the Keys to Housing document to try to keep the focus on this overall discussion on housing about the real big picture of what's going on there. And then we've been doing tremendous legislative research behind the scenes, whether it's on Opinion 1, the opinion question on the ballot about the gas tax, water survey, and other resources that help us in our legislative advocacy. On the communication side, hopefully you've all seen our expanded social media presence. We're still trying to get better at it. I'm in my 30s, not my 20s, but we're doing our best. We created a rapid response team so that we could complete the narrative about inaccurate articles or posts. And we've been able to get traction. So for example, we've had 3 different experiences this summer where there's been an article referencing cities that was incorrect. And then we released statements correcting the record. Those reporters then followed up with us, did subsequent articles where they were quoting us, and it allowed us to provide you with something that then you could share with your residents, say, actually, that's not quite right, so that we could take the arrows for you when we try to correct the record. So we'll continue to do that. We started the Wednesday web chats, which we do every legislative interim day, and then we do at other times during the week. We created a new Friday Facts template and reorganized our website accordingly. Carson at lunch today is going to take a couple of minutes and just show you all the materials that are on that website. By a quick show of hands, how many people get Friday Facts? Awesome. How many people like the Utah football references in Friday Facts? That's a markedly smaller number. Okay, duly noted. If you don't get Friday Facts, please go to the credentials desk, go to the reg desk, make sure we get your email so that you can be part of that list and be informed of what's happening that impacts you. We've met with editorial boards and reporters, and then the board has partnered with Penna Powers, which is a communications firm in town, to reboot the term local control. When we say local control, generally speaking, we know what that means. Yet we have had special interest groups and even legislators who use that term against us, and we need to take our term back. Penna Powers will be leading that effort so that we can inform policymakers and stakeholders and the general public why local control and why local government matter. To that point, why does local government matter? To us, it's simple. You are the government that impacts people's daily lives. You are part of the League Army, 1,380 mayors and council members around the state. You know what's happening at each intersection. You know what's happening in each neighborhood in your hometowns. Guess what? Your constituents know too. They may not understand the nuances of federal tax policy. They may not understand foreign policy. They may not understand the weighted pupil unit for state education funding. But they care about what happens on State Street and Vine Street to the old library. Murray, am I right? Yeah, right, Mayor Camp? As a Murray kid, I care about what happens to that building, but we can chat later. I'll spare you my opinion for now. But you as elected officials in Murray have heard from your residents about what's going to happen to my childhood library. And all of you have libraries like this one in your hometown too, where you hear from your residents. The reason you hear from them is because you are the most accessible, responsive, and accountable elected officials. After all, local government is where government works. Local government is also the front line of the future, which, as you know, has been the theme for the conference this week. Everything we've done this week has been to try to prepare you with the tools, information, and policy trends that you need to know. Many areas in Utah are growing. Those areas face challenges in transportation, land use, housing affordability, affordable housing, which, by the way, are two different issues, water, education, and tax policy. For areas that are not growing today, Pam Perlich warned us yesterday that your areas are going to grow tomorrow. So even though the growth pressures today may be in Saratoga Springs and Syracuse, tomorrow they're going to be magnified in Nephi and in Nibley. So we as the local government have a choice. We can manage growth, or growth will manage us. Now, by a quick show of hands, how many of you were uncomfortable at lunch yesterday? Raise them high. I mean, be honest, okay? I heard some people chuckling as well. How many of you wanted the chance to rebut what you heard? Yeah, the chuckles just got bigger. It was uncomfortable. It absolutely was uncomfortable. But those are the arguments that we're hearing at the Capitol about local government. Those are the arguments we're hearing from other stakeholders about how local government is an obstacle to progress. You need to know that those arguments are out there. You need to know that there are legislators and entities that don't trust you to make good local land use decisions. You need to know that some view local government as an obstacle to progress. For example, here are some of the actual quotes that we've heard on the Hill just this summer about local government. Go ahead, take a look. This is what we are hearing as we go to the Capitol to advocate for you. This is just a sampling. A couple others here that I wanted to emphasize. There are some who want to change the 50-50 formula for our local option 1%. There's been this narrative that cities are zoning for dollars. That was a narrative that we heard back in the 90s, and that cities are denying housing applications because they're chasing retail dollars instead. A couple quick things for everyone to realize, particularly those of you who maybe were newly elected in November, about what the local option 1% sales tax is. First of all, it is a city tax. It is not a state tax. It is a city tax that all of your cities imposed. The formula, the 50% point of sale, 50% population, was a city-crafted compromise. And we have long-standing resolutions here at the League, this one from 2011, another one from 2005, and others that go back. It's why the resolution process matters, where we stand up for that 50-50 compromise. We stand up for our local option because, again, it's our money. You imposed the tax. The state did not impose that tax. Now, there have been other conversations about what happens with online sales tax. There have been other conversations about tax incentives. So if you were to offer an incentive of sales tax to a company, for example, to come into your city, those are separate from the underlying issue of the 50/50 and the underlying issue of the local option 1%. In fact, we did a Wednesday web chat with senior tax guru / Oracle Roger II there in the middle, and a couple of his former colleagues from the Tax Commission, specifically about how online sales tax works with the local option 1%, the 9-digit zip code for how the money is distributed. And that's available on our website and goes into depth about how the Tax Commission is collecting that money. The conversation about online sales tax, the conversation about tax incentives, those are fair policy issues, but they are different than the underlying issue of our 50/50 formula. Now, we've also heard from legislators that the state must force a city to act, and that the state is offering to give you political cover to make hard decisions. The question that we have for you is political cover really what we want? You as elected officials, do you want political cover from the state to make hard decisions? Oh, okay. Do you want political cover? What does that mean, Lisa says from Springdale? That's a very fair question. And part of the reason this comes up is we've heard from certain legislators who say, we need to do X, Y, and Z. We don't trust cities to do X, Y, and Z, so we're going to do it for you. And because we'll make the tough decision and we're more removed from your angry residents, we'll give you the political cover by us making the decision. Or, yeah, somebody just said, or remove. Yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Ultimately, collectively, we need to deliver the message to the legislature that local government, not only is local government the most responsive level of government, but government closest to the people governs best. And you need to deliver that message to legislators. And we're here to help you. We're willing to join you at any time, any place, to meet with legislators to help deliver this message. It's imperative that we complete the narrative. We know that yesterday was uncomfortable, but that's a good chunk of the narrative. And there were things there that you needed to hear because that is what is happening in the discussions this summer. It's imperative that we collectively complete the narrative that you as local government officials are balancing the needs of your current residents and your future residents. It's imperative that we complete the narrative that growth done well brings connectivity, less impact on resources and infrastructure, and creates a sense of place. Growth done poorly and growth planned poorly erases that sense of place and overwhelms infrastructure. We need to complete that narrative. We need to complete the narrative that there are housing costs that are outside of your control, such as a labor shortage or construction costs or the overall cost of land. We need to complete that narrative. We need to complete the narrative that there is an actual need for true low-income affordable housing. So how do we address that? And what role and what keys do cities have versus what keys do other entities have for the true low-income and moderate-income affordable housing? We need to complete the narrative that infrastructure is not free, that infrastructure and services require a collective investment by all of us. We need to complete the narrative that when you impose fees, it's done in a responsible way, and that those fees often don't cover the entire cost of growth anyway. And we need to complete the narrative that while developers build buildings, we build communities. We are working as staff, and the board is working to complete that narrative. I mentioned about rebooting local control. The reporters and editorial boards we've met with, we've been investing in the research. We're meeting with legislators, business leaders, the governor. We have tried to be in every room, in every subgroup, in every committee this summer to make sure that the narrative is completed. We're all in this together. We also recognize, though, that cities have a role to play. And we can't be naive about that piece of it. We have to complete the narrative, and we have to recognize our part in the narrative. Pam Perlich said yesterday that we cannot say, let another city deal with growth. We all have a role to play in preparing for population growth. We all have a role to play in addressing housing affordability and affordable housing. But it's imperative for us to complete the narrative of what that really means. We all know that we can't rely on nostalgia as a policy. We all know that what happens in one city affects another city, whether it's planning or politics. We know we need to think regionally as we're acting locally, and we're working hard to make sure that you have the authority you need to lead and govern. The last thing is this tension is not unique to Utah. I mentioned that we've been meeting with other leagues around the country, and I can give you at least 10 examples of other leagues that are facing this sort of tension around population growth and housing prices and state involvement in local government matters. It's particularly strong in states that are having strong economic growth. For example, in Massachusetts, the league there actually brokered a grand bargain with all of the stakeholders, business community, legislators, the governor, and others about how to handle growth and prepare for growth. Every stakeholder won some and lost some. And I was meeting on the phone with the director of the Massachusetts League just last week, talking about what worked and what didn't work, and trying to learn some lessons from Massachusetts. Ditto in Texas, ditto in Tennessee, in Idaho, in Washington, in Colorado. Another interesting lesson, though, that I learned from the director of the Florida League, which I think is important for all of us to know, and that is that your voice matters. In the Florida League, in the Florida legislature, the former Speaker of the House supported 40 bills last year that would have either preempted local authority or created an unfunded mandate on local government. And the Speaker was using it as a centerpiece for his gubernatorial run. All 40 passed the House. The Florida director told me he had never seen his membership mobilize like they did in the Senate during this past legislative session. And they successfully killed almost all of those bills. That speaker ran for governor, didn't get out of the primary because local government was so inflamed. There's a lesson there. Your voice matters at the Capitol. Now, the good news is we have excellent working relationships with the governor and with the legislature. Even with legislators with whom we disagree, we have a good working relationship. The door is open. We are working hard to complete the narrative, but we need you as local elected officials, as mayors and council members who represent the same constituents that those legislators represent. We need you to complete the narrative with them about the challenges that you're facing on the ground. Why is it then that residents are frustrated by growth? What is it? Are they concerned about change? Are they concerned about the impacts? Are they concerned that we're growing in the wrong place at the wrong pace? Are they concerned about property values? Are they concerned about the change to the neighborhood or to the ward or to the quality of life? Is it because they only see the impacts and not the benefits of growth? We all know that it doesn't matter if a new resident lives in a single-family home or in a 10-story apartment tower. If you don't have access to jobs or transportation, education, recreation, water, sewer, and infrastructure, then your quality of life does suffer. We also know it doesn't matter who actually makes the underlying decision, whether it's a legislator or a mayor, if we don't plan for that quality of life. And you're on the front line of preparing for that quality of life. And we have cautioned policymakers and other stakeholders that the dialogue right now is well ahead of where the population is at. We're ahead of residents on growth, and we're ahead of residents on all of the related issues. We are fighting against one-size-fits-all approaches because we recognize that we need to consider the differences of the economic growth challenges in a Moab and a Vernal, which are different than the economic growth challenges in a Lehigh and a Harriman. And the demographic challenges in a St. George are different than the demographic challenges in a Monroe. Indeed, one size misfits all.